And come one, come all to every single disruptive partner out there. This is a great space for disruptive partners to come gather tonight and talk about Florida State, Clemson, the Big 12, the SEC, the Big 10, everything going on right now, which continues to get crazier and crazier. And honestly, if you are a Big 12 fan, it continues to get more and more intriguing and interesting because now we have yet another bombshell, maybe too strong on this one, but it's another pretty strong voice in the college football space, adding his voice to the Clemson and Florida State to the Big 12 parade. I don't know what we want to call it at this point, but it seems like everybody is basically coming out of the woodwork. Let's put it that way. Like, we have gotten to the point now where it seems like every day this week and almost every day since last week when we first saw Ross Dellinger drop into a story, hey, can Brett Yormark do enough to lure one or both of Clemson and Florida State to the Big 12? And we all kind of looked around like, all right, like, wow, okay. I guess this must be a more serious thing than we thought. Every single day since then, it seems like the drum has beat again for that. Now, I will stress before I get into all this and lay it out because, look, I know how the internet works. I know how comments work. I know how the comment section generally works. I am not sitting here saying I still think that this is the most likely outcome, but I have been slower, I think, than a lot of people in Big 12 country, maybe just more measured than a lot of people in Big 12 country when it comes to the Clemson Florida State possibility, because I don't want to just blow smoke. I don't want to get people's hopes up for no reason. I don't want to, I suppose you could say I don't want to get my own hopes up either, but really I'm kind of at the point where I'm just sitting back and eating popcorn, man. Whatever happens, I don't fear for the Big 12 survival anymore. So like, we're good. When this channel started really in 2021 in earnest, when I was doing the realignment stuff like that, those were legitimate. Like, we felt like we were fighting for our lives times. That's not what this is. So like, I'm good no matter what happens. It would be wildly fascinating if that includes Clemson and Florida State. But I try not to be total realignment rumor mongering guy, even though like Greg Flugar, who I definitely trust, has been not necessarily saying Clemson, Florida State to the Big 12 for a while, but has definitely dampened the Clemson and Florida State to the Big 10 or SEC thing for a while. I just was not going to get out in front of myself and say, hey, the Big 12 seems likely. But it's just like every day somebody else comes in and makes me think more and more like, damn, all right, I guess this is really on the table. And Josh Pate is the latest, man. Josh Pate's comments on his show yesterday, I'm going to play for you in just a moment, a snippet of those anyway, as he is now kind of added to this. And of course, the Brett McMurphy story is included in that. I have not gone live, I suppose, since we got the Brett McMurphy story. Last time I went live, it was right on the heels of the Jason Scheer tweet. So even since I last spoke to you guys live, I mean, we've had Brett McMurphy come out with a story detailing the Big Ten and the SEC, basically saying thanks, but no thanks for right now. Greg Sankey is taking like veiled shots at Florida State in radio interviews today down at SEC Media Days. And now we have Josh Pate as well. So I'm going to outline everything kind of in order here for you and play you Josh Pate's comments in just a moment. But I do want to set the stage a little bit for the rest of the show. I'm sure this will take up most of what we are going to be talking about tonight for sure. But I did see, and speaking of Jason Scheer, I saw a little nugget from him where he mentioned the Big 12's top candidates outside of Florida State and Clemson when it comes to the ACC, which I found very interesting. And all this conversation for the Big 12, man, just seems like it has gone up a notch, right? You're kind of playing at a higher tax bracket now, at least it would appear. Greg Flugar made a great point about outcomes and scenarios based on how the lawsuit goes with Florida State and Clemson and company. And when I say how the lawsuit goes, it means how high that exit fee is going to be, because that will dictate how the rest of the dominoes follow in all of this. Will it be too cost prohibitive for others to follow, or will others just come waltzing right through that door? I mentioned Greg Sankey. That guy, I know a lot of people were taking some shots at Florida State with the comments that he had about FSU. And like, look, I love Sankey for taking some shots because if you listen to the interview that I did with TJ Pittenger the other day from College Football Addiction and Double Fries No Slaw, I was talking about, like, look, man, I'm kind of a media day guy. Like, I like media day. They can be boring. People generally can scoff at them a little bit, but I like when we get some of this stuff. So I'm down with it from that standpoint from Sankey. But that guy, just hypocritical, just seems really bad for the game right now. I'm like listening to him rip on Florida State, like as if the SEC has not cried and whined whenever they don't get absolutely everything they want. And they're, guys like Josh Pate have laid the groundwork for, hey, if the SEC doesn't get 4 teams in the playoff this year, I mean, you're going to see them whining about changes, and like things will change, and they'll dictate the way that that's going to go, and they'll start making the rules because they will whine about the same types of things. I find it hard to believe they would have acted much different than Florida State. If we have time, I would love to get to my Big 12 anonymous player surveys. If you guys are signed up at ofbnews.com or by clicking the link in the description of the video to get signed up for my Big 12 newsletter, which is now 1,100 plus subscriptions strong in only 10 days. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate all of you who have subscribed so much, but I've been dropping these in for you. I did an anonymous player survey at Big 12 Media Days, and this is the second piece of it, and this is maybe the best when it comes to the anonymous quotes that I got. It was the toughest place to play in the Big 12. We got some players taking shots at Texas. We got some great quotes about the most unique atmospheres in the Big 12. There was one clear winner, but like 5 or 6 stadiums got multiple votes. So there was a pretty wide range of discussion from the players on this. Again, ofbnews.com if you want that coming straight to your inbox. Getting Big 12 news, no SEC slant, no Big 10 slant all the time. But I would also like to discuss that here on the YouTube channel a little bit if we do have time. There's a Florida State lawsuit update. Oh, by the way, the thing that's like, 6th on my outline tonight is, the Power Four may just break away from the rest of the NCAA. No big deal. It's like, who cares right now? We've got Florida State and Clemson to talk about. So anyway, that's what I have on the docket for tonight. But you guys know, if you've been around here, that you are very much welcome to be a part of the show. Obviously, keep the comments coming. But if you want to ensure that you make it on the show, you can leave a super chat. To do that, you click the $ below the chat box, attach a donation. It will put it in a separate column for me. So it means you're making the show tonight. It's how you can voice your opinion while supporting the channel at the same time. And I truly do appreciate all the guys who support that way. Could not do everything I do without your support. So that is amazing. Those of you who do that, obviously just liking the video definitely really helps me out too. I appreciate all the guys who do that. If you're listening after the fact, comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this FSU Clemson thing, man. Are you starting to buy that there's a legitimate chance here for them to come to the Big 12? Let me know in the comments. But if you are a supporter of the channel, again, a totally free way to really support me right now is just to sign up, ofbnews.com. It's the Open for Business newsletter. You hear Brett Yormark say it all the time. The Big 12 is open for business. And that's what this is with the newsletter. Been getting some great feedback. And again, 1,100 plus Big 12 fans have already signed up. All right, I think that's my laundry list for you guys. Oh, one last thing. If you are watching delayed, you're not catching it live, you guys know the Venmo deal. If you want to contribute on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4, you leave me a question or comment there, I'll kick off the next show with it. So that is another way to be involved here tonight. Starter 179, first out of the chute here. Appreciate you. Thank you for your support. Starter 179 says, why does the media not mention our media deal is up way before the ACC? They call it a lateral move, but it's not. We renew 15 years before the ACC. Well, the lateral move comment is interesting. And I've even said that, because I think the general concept here is, all right, so why are Florida State and Clemson going to go through all this trouble just to make a lateral move? And in terms of conference prestige, that is certainly accurate. But if Clemson and Florida State are coming to the Big 12, it's not going to be for the same share that everybody is making now. And so a part of it is, well, for one, if it happens soon enough, I mean, the Big 12's new TV deal hasn't even kicked in yet and doesn't until 2025. So presumably there would be room, I would imagine, to negotiate that a little bit if you have Florida State and Clemson coming in, and that would mean more money for everybody. But I think not enough people are connecting the private equity dots here, that if Clemson and Florida State are coming, it will be to make more money than they're making right now, and significantly more money. And that would come in large part from private equity money. Some of it probably too from increased TV value with the TV contract there. Like that's how it would happen. Florida State and Clemson are not coming for $35 million a year, right? I mean, it would be flirting, I'm sure, with an SEC or Big Ten number if they would actually make that jump, which then again gets into the discussion of, all right, are you inviting another Texas in here, right? We're talking about disruptive partners. Are you inviting another Texas in that's going to be somebody who looks down on you, makes more money, and causes problems? Legitimate question. I know it's a legitimate question for some of the Big 12. Like it doesn't take a reporter to be able to tell you that after everything the league has dealt with Texas. And that's not even an indictment on Florida State, but it's, hey, if that's even a possibility based on circumstance, it's something that would have to be vetted out. But I mean, you raise a fair point there on the media deal. You're not going to be stuck with where you're at. There is also, I mean, the ACC media deal, ESPN can void it, but they have to make that decision by February. There are a lot of moving parts with the TV deals, but yeah, one thing I would mention is if it happens in an expedient fashion, then you could possibly, I suppose, get the deal renegotiated that you haven't even started yet. So we shall see. We shall see, but I appreciate you, Star 179. Okay, so here is the timeline that I'm going to lay out to you on how I am being taken to the point now where I'm much more open to, all right, like maybe this could really happen. Instead of like, all right, like outside shot, I see this being fallback school, safety school, feels a little bit like a safety school here. The Big 12 is kind of Florida State and Clemson's safety school. And that probably wouldn't change until the moment they joined if they did. But I guess I would say it's looking more likely that ACT score isn't coming the way that you wanted it to. They may have to be retaking that a couple of times the way that it's looking right now. Safety school coming closer in the rear view mirror. So Greg Pflugar, you guys know, Peek Around the Corner. At least I assume most of you know the Peek Around the Corner college football channel. Make sure you go check that out. Greg Pflugar has been preaching for a long time. Hey, this idea that the Big Ten is just a shoe-in and that the SEC would definitely be interested in Florida State and Clemson, that's not really the case right now. And he had been quietly to moderately saying that for weeks. I mean, for weeks. And you guys know, I very much respect Greg. He got a huge scoop right a couple of years ago with the USC and UCLA news and has generally been on the right side of history. I mean, certainly in the Big 12, Pac-12, whatever you want to call it, battle. That sounds a little corny, like we're playing basketball games in January, but that whole saga, that's a better word, saga, Greg was on the right side of history there. I just never at that moment thought, okay, that means the Big 12 is legitimately in play here. I thought, okay, there's going to be some jockeying, some positioning. They're not going to extend anything officially until it actually comes to the point where they would really need to. Then we have Ross Dellinger last week at Big 12 Media Days. He slips into his story after day one, the line like, can Brett Yormark pull together enough to convince one or both of Florida State and Clemson to come to the Big 12? And I thought, well, damn, that's a very legitimate national voice and very connected guy. I mean, you watch Ross Dellinger work a room at a conference media day event. It is pretty impressive. I mean, the guy's talking to everybody. So I know he's connected. And for him to say that's definitely not nothing. Then he does the interview with me and says, hey, I think they've been talking. Nothing serious, but I think there have been some preliminary talks there. Again, you take notice of that because he's not somebody that's going to just wildly speculate here. That's going to be informed speculation if it is speculation. Okay, and so I'm like, all right, like maybe this is something that should be on the radar. Then Jason Scheer, who last summer, Big 12, Pac-12, I mean, very much on the right side of history and took a lot of flack for it from people. Because I do think sometimes like the guys who run fan sites can get a bad rap here when they really try to go out there with scoops and reporting beyond just the paywalls of their website. And that definitely was happening to Scheer. He was taking shots from John Canzano, who was the biggest Pac-12 cheerleader that was out there. And lo and behold, John Canzano was just parroting what he was hearing from the most optimistic corners of the Pac-12 world, likely Oregon State and Washington State. and Jason Scheer was correct. So he drops the bombshell. According to sources, there's an internal belief in the Big 12 that Florida State and Clemson are likely to join the conference within the next year or so. And I'm like, okay, well, now this is really making me think about this, because I know the credibility track record Jason Scheer built up last year in the conference realignment space, and specifically as it relates to the Big 12. So, okay, now my ears are starting to get perked up more. And then right on the heels of that, Brett McMurphy with the story, Florida State likely will not have a spot in the Big 10 or SEC if it's successful in leaving the ACC and the ACC stays intact. There are multiple concerns about adding Florida State. Sources said those reasons include the fact that it doesn't make financial sense for either league. Quote, there's no appetite for more expansion. And FSU has shown, quote, it's not a good partner. There was also, this line from the story, what's the upside of Florida State? The source said, we got what we needed by adding USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. And Oregon and Washington were added at 50 cents on the dollar to help USC and UCLA. Who would Florida State help? And at what cost? And most importantly, who's going to pay for it? And that is a key question here. Who's going to pay for it? Like, TV network shelling this out? Is it going to be a reduced share somewhere? And we'll get into all the things that this could be, right? I mean, this very much could be negotiating tactics, posturing for legal reasons, or otherwise. I certainly understand all those theories. And that's why, again, I would never sit here and tell you FSU and Clemson to the Big Ten is the most likely outcome here. But now let's think about Josh Pate, right? He gets everybody riled up with the gif of the water rippling, like kind of shaking. This is going back a couple of weeks now. Somebody says ACC expanding, and he says, no, it's going to do the opposite of that. If you go back even before that, he made a comment at one point about Brett Yormark on his show where he said something to the effect, and I was trying to go back and find this and I couldn't, but he said something to the effect of like, don't let Brett Yormark get his hands on something good here. Like basically like, be careful with this guy, and didn't really elaborate on what it was at the time. And I would not have dreamed that it was about potentially poaching Florida State and Clemson here from the ACC. I guess poaching may be the wrong word, depending on how you look at it. But adding Florida State and Clemson, it sounds like, though, that's exactly what the hell Josh Pate meant. Because here is what Josh said on his show yesterday that he did live from SEC Media Days. And he starts here by talking about the McMurphy article, and he is reacting to it.
It didn't sound good for the prospects of, let's say, Florida State going to the Big Ten or Florida State going to the SEC. That falls right in line with the feeling that I've had for a month and a half or so. There was a point where I thought Florida State to the Big Ten or the SEC made a lot of sense. In fact, I still think it makes a lot of sense, but it makes a lot of sense from a fan's perspective. It doesn't make a lot of sense from the perspective of the people making these decisions, and whether that's right or wrong or indifferent, we'll talk about that. We can hash that out another time. But the Big 12 or independence has been where I thought Notre Dame and Clemson may be headed for a while.
Now, there's a little slip there at the end. I think it's obvious he means Florida State and not Notre Dame, although we'd be doing a totally different show here if Notre Dame were actually the team in question there. But yeah, I mean, he says, look, this is what I've been hearing. Like Brett McMurphy put words to what I have been hearing. And I think, I don't want to speak totally for Greg Flugar, but I feel like he probably felt kind of the same way about the Brett McMurphy story. Like, okay, finally, now somebody else is rolling with what everybody has been whispering about behind closed doors here. And Josh Pate, man, we can have the Josh Pate dispute. I know someone seems to always want to when I bring up that I think he's one of the best and most well-respected voices in college football right now. Guy gets a lot of access, man. He's talking to people. And for him to sit there and say, like, I've thought for a while now, Big 12 or independence is where Florida State is going. That's all right. Like, you guys finally fully have my attention. It's like someone's been tapping on my shoulder the entire time through the movie. I don't want to turn around. I'm trying to just pay attention to the movie. Like, all right, I'm turning around. I'm paying attention. I'm looking. You have my attention. Tell me what you're going to tell me. I'm here. I'm looking. We'll see if this can happen. And it's just unbelievable. I know this has kind of been my theme of the week. It's unbelievable that Brett Yormark has us to the point where, like, this is a legitimate discussion. This is something we are talking about, regardless of what the ultimate outcome is here. This has been a marvelous win for the Big 12. Think about the PR steps that this league has made, man, it's wild. It's wild. The PR steps that this league has taken since the days of Dan Beebe to where it's at right now. You've got the commissioner that is a total shark out there just waiting in the waters. You've got the commissioner that's been able to play, what was the line from the other day? A hand of tens like a hand of pocket aces. You know, I mean, he's been able to do this over and over again, and now seems to be aiming for the stars here with Florida State and Clemson and private equity and all these things. You can say what you want about some level of concern with those, and I do hear some people saying that in Big 12 country, but I think you're entitled to your own opinion. I think you are just completely out of line if you don't think that this is a feat of incredible accomplishment from Brett Yormark to even get us here in the conversations where we're at right now. Now, having said all of that, could this just be some kind of negotiating tactic or ploy from the SEC and Big Ten to try and get Florida State or Clemson on the cheap or even the cheaper? Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the logic does check out for that in a lot of ways. Like, hey, we're going to just send the message right now. Like, we don't want you. We don't need you. They've got all the leverage. Like, why would the SEC or Big Ten need to do anything to try and impress them? Like, they're well stocked. They are well stocked. They have all the advantages in the sport. They don't need anything. They're going to be sending like 4 teams to the playoff apiece every single year. They're set up long-term to be totally fine. They do not need, this is not a need. This is sprinkles on the ice cream cone. Like, the ice cream cone is already built up. You don't need it. And that's not a knock really on Florida State or Clemson. It's just they've got so many great football brands in both of those conferences. They don't need them. So there's no real reason for them to be posturing otherwise here. And they could be looking at it like, look, there's not a lot of TV money to go around. Like, we can't take them at anywhere near a full share right now. So let's get them back on their heels, make them feel more desperate so we can get them even cheaper if we are going to get them. I do think that makes sense. It could be any combination of these last couple things I'm going to mention, but another piece of it could be legal reasons. Like, you don't want any reason for anybody in court to have something to go after you for. And Florida State is a great example as to why. Who the hell was still thinking about John Swofford? But yet John Swofford's getting brought up in this lawsuit by Florida State's attorneys, for some nepotism claims from forever ago. So you don't want your name to be out there like, hey, we're talking, we're thinking about, you don't want any suspicion, anything that publicly could be tied back to you. Now all you're doing is putting out things publicly that are you saying like, yeah, we don't, not only are we not trying to entice them to come here, we don't need them at all. Why? This is crazy. Why would we do this? They're disruptors. We don't like them. We're putting them down. Like, it's taking the total opposite route there. So plausible deniability, man. I mean, there's nothing that they can nail you on publicly for all of this. Like, yeah, I get it. That makes sense too. And it could just simply be they're not interested until somebody is available, because why would they be? I just mentioned they don't need either of these two. They don't need sprinkles on the ice cream cone. Still going to taste plenty good. They're doing all right. And there's no real need until it actually happens. I saw TJ tweeted this from a 24/7 sports story that came out right after USC and UCLA. That news broke that they were leaving for the Big Ten. Said, according to Pac-12 insider John Wilner, a source would be stunned if Washington and Oregon went to the Big Ten as it stands. Wilner stated the growing reality is that the two schools will have to make things work in the Pac-12 or leave and join the Big 12. The source to Wilner provided more information. I'd be stunned if Washington and Oregon go to the Big Ten. The Big Ten will sit back for 2 years, then try to get Notre Dame. We know how that worked out. It didn't happen. The Big 12 was actually mentioned there, which that was one thing that turned me like, whoa, okay, well, the growing reality is the two schools will have to make things work in the Big 12 or leave, make things work in the Pac-12 or leave and join the Big 12. I'm like, all right, I can see why FSU fans will be pointing to that with a lot of hope right now. Like, we went through this cycle with Oregon and Washington. There were brief, fleeting moments where the Big 12 was mentioned as a possibility. And then when push came to shove and they were breaking free and the conference was imploding and it was right there at the 11th hour and you had to make a decision in the wee hours of the night, the decision was made. The Big Ten was like, all right, look, I mean, Oregon and Washington are right there. Like, you're just, sprinkles are right there. You're throwing them in our face. Okay, we'll take them. I view it like, I am horrible. Like, so I can't buy peanut butter, right? Because if I have peanut butter in the house, I will just spoon that into my mouth nonstop. I will not be able to stop eating it. And I can eat a great meal, be feeling totally full and fine, and be like, I don't need anything else. This is totally fine. But if you all of a sudden plopped on the table in front of me like a jar of peanut butter, I'd be like, well, I mean, like, it's here. I'm going to eat it. I mean, right now, like, Florida State and Clemson are still in the other room, man. They're not there. They're not in your eyesight. You don't have it. But if they break free from the ACC and then they're just right on the table, then maybe the SEC and the Big Ten are like, I mean, hey, look, like, I do like peanut butter. I might as well just take it. That's kind of the situation that we have here. So it still is a totally different thing. And Josh Pate, by the way, went on to say, in essence, that like, it's a different thing to say it all now versus react when you actually are there in the moment. But enough people that are legitimately connected that no, I don't think anybody can really doubt here the track record of some of these folks, that you have to believe this is a realistic possibility. This is at least in the realm of possibility, and I'm definitely there. I have been moved significantly on this. I still would not, my opinion would still be that it is more likely than not that Florida State and Clemson are at least not in the Big 12. Whether or not that's the Big 10 or the SEC, Noel fans, not that you guys are really waiting and hanging on every single word that I have to say. I don't really have a super strong opinion there on whether or not that will happen, but whether it's that, some version of the ACC, independence, all of that seems to be like, I would take the field. That's kind of like, you take the Big 12 or the field. I'm going to bet the field on that. But the odds have definitely risen in my eyes for the Big 12 here. There's no doubt about that based on who has come out and now spoken something about this and breathed some life really in this. You know what I mean? If you look at the situation, at the very least, there seems to be no urgency from the Big Ten or the SEC. And they are clearly, at best for Florida State and Clemson, the Big Ten and the SEC have flexed their leverage here. That is at best, your best case scenario. They have flexed their leverage. That they now are sitting here like, look, we don't have to have you. So we'll make you sweat it out a little bit, and that's probably going to cost you some money, a piece of whatever share you're going to get. So if they're out and the ACC exit fee is cost prohibitive enough that nobody else wants to join, and then it's just Florida State and Clemson like out on an island, I mean, they really theoretically at that point may not have other options. I mean, that is the McMurphy scenario, right? It was all about the ACC, and if the ACC stays intact. So if it's a massive exit fee still, and they're having to dip way into private equity to get out, and everybody else looks around, North Carolina, I guess we would see what happens with them in that, because, McMurphy mentioned like North Carolina and Virginia may be bigger targets at that point than Florida State or Clemson. And I think North Carolina for sure would be. Very interesting to see how that plays out. But if they're saying like, yeah, whatever, we'll stay in the ACC, we're not paying that to get out. That's crazy. You guys want to do that? You're crazy. That's fine. We're not doing that. They may just be totally stuck. And it'd be fascinating to see if Florida State wants to test the independence thing, going the route of being an independent. That seems difficult. The thing that would be intriguing about that to me would be the TV aspect of it, because there's been a thought that at some point, we're going to get to the point where like Ohio State would just sign its own TV deal. Like everybody would be doing the Notre Dame thing where, it's going to get so consolidated that the TV networks are going to be like, well, why are we doing anybody grouped together? We'll just sign you all individually. What would the finances of that be? How much money would you be able to make? I have my doubts that would be something Florida State would be super happy with. And thus the Big 12 becomes, again, a legitimate possibility there. So maybe something happens this month, but man, I mean, the legal process continues to feel like it's a long way from being over for Florida State. Big Ten and SEC are kind of flexing their leverage. We know that the Big 12 is actively looking at private equity, and you're hearing this chorus of voices now say this is a legitimate possibility. It does feel like if you are really following and reading the tea leaves right now, that we're kind of in a position where that seems like a legitimate option right now for FSU and Clemson. Let's talk to Alan. What's up, Alan? Alan says, John, between Clemson and Florida State over the last 20 years, only Clemson has a record to brag about, yet they are quiet while FSU is arrogant. Remind you of Texas and Oklahoma. Well, I do think there are some similarities there in the demeanor of the two schools between Texas and Oklahoma. And I guess, if we really want to carry this out, I'd have to go look year by year to be totally fair to Florida State. I mean, look, Texas went 14 years without winning the Big 12. 14 years. So Florida State definitely had a dip. I don't think it was quite to Texas levels. And in between that, I mean, much like Texas, it's like, well, Texas won a national championship, then played for another, then went on the 14-year dip through the wilderness where they were a 7-5 program. And then they emerged back out in the college football playoff. And for Florida State, it was like win a national championship with Jameis, kind of dip into the laggy end of the Jimbo Fisher era, disappear for a little while from relevancy. And then all of a sudden they pop back up last year as unbeaten ACC champs. And obviously there was a lot of controversy there, but probably should have made the playoff. So there are some similarities there for sure to Texas. I think they've been more consistent. They deserve more credit for being consistent than Texas has. But loosely, I think the comp works. I mean, then you have Clemson, who is Clemson went through like the more Oklahoma period, even to higher degrees. They were legitimately winning games in the college football playoff and legitimately winning titles there. And yes, Florida State has certainly been more brash. Florida State is definitely the more brash of the two. I can't say that I intimately know Clemson enough. It would not be fair of me to say that I really know what the vibe of Clemson is. But I do know what I observed on Twitter when all this started coming out in the last week or so. And it was that Clemson fans seemed a lot more open to it, and they were definitely vibing more with Big 12 fans. So yeah, I think there are some comparisons there, Alan. I definitely see what you're doing. And I think that's a very, very interesting way to look at it. And yeah, I mean, the Texas comp has been brought up a couple of times now, just in the respect of no one wants to be dealing with another Texas. That wasn't really very fun for anybody. Nobody wants to be doing that at all. So I'm sure that is a consideration for a lot of people in the Big 12 here. Appreciate you, Alan. Thank you. That was a good comment tonight. And thank you for your support of the channel as always. If you guys want to be like Alan and Starter 179, you can do so by clicking the $ below the chat box. Creates a super chat. It will ensure that you make the show tonight. That is the way to make sure that you get on if you want to. You can also support me just by liking the video, or the really big way right now, if you click the link in the description and go quickly sign up for my Big 12 newsletter, open for business. You can also just do so at ofbnews.com. Very easy way to do that. You can immediately then get access to the Big 12 anonymous player polls. We've had 2 now. I asked the players who they thought would win the Big 12, and a surprising answer there was not one of the top 4 in the Big 12 preseason media poll. And the next one that just went out and hit the inbox of everybody yesterday was asking the players the toughest place to play in the Big 12. And boy, we got some gem quotes out of that, man. We got some gem quotes out of that. Actually, I say yesterday. Was that this morning? I can't keep my days straight. That might have been this morning, actually, that the newsletter went out there. So anyway, last night. It was last night. There we go. Split the difference. Anyway, ofbnews.com. To get signed up there. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to contribute and leave a question or comment there as well. If you're not catching it live, I will kick off the next show with your question or comment. So we know the Big 12, and I saw that Bracket Cat said I'm late. What did I miss? Bracket Cat, what you missed is that Josh Pate added his voice now to everybody who's been saying the Big 12 is a legitimate possibility for Clemson and Florida State. Josh Pate said that that's how he's felt for a while now, that Clemson and Florida State would likely be headed to the Big 12 or independence, and that the Big 10 or SEC was not a very likely option. That is the main news item that you may have missed from the last 24 to 36 hours. And so on the heels of that, okay, Florida State and Clemson are there. Well, what else? If in this hypothetical dream scenario for the Big 12, I say dream, for most, I think it's a dream scenario, but I still do see some, I don't know if they're just Big 12 purists or what you would call them at this point. And oddly enough, a lot of the same people that really complain about UCF and Houston and not adding high enough caliber of schools in that round of realignment for the Big 12 are now the ones that seem to complain and really not want Florida State and Clemson. So it's what do you want? What do you want in the Big 12? But for some, if this dream scenario plays out, most probably, if this dream scenario plays out and you have Florida State and Clemson and you have a legitimate claim then to making it like a power 3, I mean, at least close to it, power 2.5 maybe, in college football, who else would you grab? Who else would you grab? Like, what else happens with the ACC? I think that is a really intriguing question. Like, how big do you want to go at that point? Are we assuming that everybody else is on the table from the ACC? Some of that is tough because it would depend on, like, I feel like there's just a lot of dominoes that have to fall there. Like, if the exit fee is going to be manageable enough for a bunch of teams to leave, then I would imagine that you're going to have the SEC go in and poach like North Carolina and Virginia. I guess maybe in this scenario, it's like Florida State and Clemson are going to leave. The Big Ten and the SEC don't want them, but the SEC is going to go snatch up Virginia and North Carolina. Conference is basically dissolving there. Then do the exit fees like go away? It's hard for me to pin down like what is the exact scenario where the Big 12 is able to go scoop up like an extra 2 to 4 schools. I know we had like Eddie on the other day saying the Big 12 needs to get to, was it 24? Maybe Eddie had suggested that they need to get to a bigger number, split it off into 2 divisions. I know a lot of people really like the idea of that. I'm just saying the money has to make sense because I don't know that there's enough private equity money to go around necessarily. Maybe there is. I don't know if there's enough to cover the exit fees of like 6 schools out of the ACC and then still be able to pay Florida State and Clemson like they're a Big Ten or an SEC school here in this sort of scenario. But I guess if there is, I wanted to bring you this tweet that I saw out there from a radio interview in Louisville that Jason Scheer did. And my apologies, man, the way I copied this, I did not get the radio station's name. This is my bad. Louisville radio station. I am very sorry. This is bad work by me. I owe you one for this. Hit me up on Twitter at JL Kurtz. But they had Jason Scheer on, who you saw on the channel earlier this week, by the way. And Jason Scheer, if you are unfamiliar, covers Arizona for Wildcat Authority. He was the one that had the tweet earlier this week that said the Big 12 is very optimistic that they are going to get Clemson and Florida State in the next year or so. Jason Scheer apparently told this Louisville radio station that the Big 12's top candidates following Florida State and Clemson would be Miami and Louisville, followed by NC State and Virginia Tech. That's a really nice list. Okay. So according to Jason Scheer, the Big 12's list would be Florida State, Clemson. And then after that, Miami, Louisville, NC State, Virginia Tech. I mean, Miami's a no-brainer for number 3 here. If we are talking about shoot your shot, right? You're not going to get North Carolina. You're not, I don't know that Virginia would do the Big 12 a whole hell of a lot of good, and they're not coming either. Miami seems to be in like I always thought that was like a, maybe loosely realistic, but like probably not. They're a tough read. The football brand, I know it's old, it's aging, it's been in the fridge forever. Miami's just been tucked away in the back of the fridge behind an old jar of pickles for like, 9-10 months at this point. And you don't really, there's some stuff growing on it. And you're like, but what's there? Like the remnants of it are still there. Pretty good brand, man. I mean, you'd want to take Miami. You'd certainly want to take Miami if you could. Louisville has always been like the most obvious one to me. They were very close to being a member of the Big 12 at one point in time when the league was going through the TCU West Virginia cycle. They have a very good historic basketball program. We'll see about it getting turned around right now, but that's a definite fit from that standpoint. Geographically, I guess we can say it still makes sense. I don't know, damn near anything with the Big 12 at this point would theoretically make sense, but the roots of the Big 12, Louisville makes sense from a geographic standpoint. I have always thought that was number 1 on the list, but the way I was viewing this 2 weeks ago was that Louisville would be like the realistic list. They're easily number 1. And now it's starting to look like, all right, I mean, maybe Florida State, Clemson, and Miami are all in the category too. NC State and Virginia Tech, that's also nice. I mean, you go back a couple of months, especially with the North Carolina legislature stuff, like everything that we were talking about with maybe legislature is the wrong word. Some of it, I guess, legislature, but Board of Governors, everything politically happening in North Carolina. The combo was about Like, is NC State going to be able to go with North Carolina? Will they be able to staple themselves to the Tar Heels and get wherever they want to go in the Power 2? So I was kind of like, all right, well, that may not really happen. I think NC State's pretty damn solid. Virginia Tech, kind of the same way, and that's a big fan base. You're getting into a pretty big area. Not that market size really matters all that much anymore, but at least in terms of bringing in what appears to be a pretty big and proud fan base, you can do that with Virginia Tech too. Man, I don't know. I really like this. I like this list a lot. Whereas, again, a couple of months ago, I was thinking, yeah, I mean, Louisville, I guess you probably go grab Pitt for the backyard brawl, like West Virginia rivalry. And like, that's fine. I'd be happy for West Virginia in the backyard brawl. Other than that, Pitt, it's fine. And I thought, like, NC State and Virginia Tech, maybe. I had high hopes for Duke at one point in time because of the basketball value add that you could be giving to Brett Yormark to try to make something out of there. I think that ship has definitely sailed. And, we talked to some folks here on the channel, like Andrew Carter, who really threw some cold water on that. I don't think that is happening, but that's a nice list, man. I mean, think about that league. Even if you just stop at Miami and Louisville, dude, if it's Clemson, Miami, Florida State, Louisville, so that's a nice haul. That's a nice haul. We're starting to talk about this being a pretty legitimate little conference that the Big 12 would be throwing together. Here is what Brett McMurphy said, by the way, about all of this. If we're thinking about the dominoes starting to fall here and making this happen, I didn't mention that earlier when talking about McMurphy's report, which was more about the SEC and Big Ten for Florida State and Miami. But he said if the Big Ten and SEC aren't options, the Big 12 would seem to be a potential landing spot, sources said. The only problem, Florida State and Clemson aren't currently that enamored with the Big 12. But then again, neither were Utah and Arizona State until they saw the Pac-12 crumbling before their eyes, and look where they ended up. Desperate times call for desperate measures. That's so true. And I think that would basically go for this entire list. Everybody here, Miami, Louisville, NC State, Virginia Tech, Florida State, Clemson. I don't think there would be a soul in there who would be really fired up about coming to the Big 12. At least in this last round of realignment, it seemed like Colorado and Arizona were, kind of fired up about coming to the Big 12. Coach Prime certainly seemed fired up at media days in Vegas, right? Like there seemed to be some legitimate excitement around that. Not so much for this group, but hey, Utah's here. I saw it with my own two eyes. Cam Rising was in front of all of us at Big 12 media days. Like I know that they were there. They're in the conference. They came. Arizona State, they're here. Kenny Dillingham was there. They're in the conference because they basically had to be. And if that's going to be the option and the only way that you can really survive this is going to be by far your best option in all of this, then the schools will have no choice. So I'm not surprised to see that kind of be the sentiment from McMurphy's story. And he's exactly right about the reality of that sentiment. Now, as far as some of the logistics of this, how this would break down, I want to show you this, which I thought was really good from Greg Flugar. If the ACC grant of rights and exit fee is ultimately set low enough to which multiple schools find it economically plausible to bolt, and the conference completely implodes, it'll create media company inventory issues that could entice an expansion of the Big 12, SEC, and Big 10. So I guess, yeah, the idea there being like if ESPN is losing all of this ACC inventory, and it's just going away, like they'll need to recoup some of that somewhere. They are obviously in bed with the SEC and the Big 12. So, hey, get some schools over there. Let's kick the inventory over there. Make sure that we can keep that up. We'll give you the money to add these schools. And bada bing, bada boom, there you go. And then the Big 10 piece, I guess if there's just expansion happening there, the Big 10's not going to want to get left behind and try to pick up what they can too. Then if the other scenario, if the ACC grant of rights exit fee number becomes prohibitive, the number is set at a high enough number where there won't be a line out the door, the ACC stays intact, and there won't be a feeding frenzy of expansion. And Greg points out, those who insisted Florida State to the Big 10 deal was done 1 year ago find themselves in the strange position where it could still happen, but only at the result of the Big 12 becoming more valuable and cementing themselves into Power 3 status through more expansion, which I think is very true. And that's why I said earlier, like, guys, the way this is playing out right now, whether it is the scenario of Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Louisville, Virginia Tech, NC State, or not, whatever it's going to be, the Big 12's sitting pretty right now. From where we thought this was going to be, from what we thought the best case scenario was last summer when we went through this Pac-12 saga, man, this feels good. You can kind of kick back and say it's good right now. Possibility of it being great. There's certainly a lot of upside there with private equity in Florida State and Clemson, even if there is a bunch of risk too. There's a lot of upside, and you could take that chance if your mark can pull it off. But if not, then we're still good. We're still going to be okay. And we may be landing some of those second-tier ACC schools, and then we're legitimately, no questions asked, like, we are the conference that survived. We are the third league. We are the best of the rest. And say what you will, make fun of us. We've got good basketball. We've got really fun football and solid football. We're going to have access to a playoff spot to at least be able to make some noise. This is a hell of a lot better than it looked in late July 2021. Remarkable again that we are here. Don't lose sight of that, everybody. Do not lose sight of that. Starter 179, appreciate you. Starter 179 says, what about Duke? Yeah, Duke just seems like they're kind of thumbing their nose at the Big 12. I don't think they really want that. Now, I guess we go back to the desperate times thing. I don't know. There's been chatter of like some of the ACC leftover schools forming like an Ivy League light sort of conference. I would think maybe they could be a part of that. I still think there's at least some thought to like, hey, maybe if there is a big scramble for trying to add schools and replace the inventory, SEC takes Duke, North Carolina. They can add a lot of basketball brand value with that. They're already stocked on football brands, so they can really add something to the basketball deal. And Greg Sankey maybe wanting to follow in the footsteps of Brett Yormark and try to decouple their basketball deal and sell that separately from football. So I think there's more value in Duke than people would probably give them credit for. Look, I would love to have their basketball in the Big 12. I mean, full stop. I would enjoy that a lot. It's kind of like, I mean, in a lot of ways, it would be like adding UConn, but with a better football program. I mean, Duke's definitely a football program that's in a better position than UConn, and we know how much Brett Yormark coveted UConn. So I guess I'm sure Yormark would at least make some phone calls there, but I'm not really optimistic about anything there working out. And I would suggest going back, if you haven't, look at the interview that I did with Andrew Carter. That's probably been a month-ish ago, where he did a good job kind of outlining that. It was like, yeah, I can't really see that happening for Duke. So anyway, if you guys want to be like Starter 179, click the $ below the chat box. You can submit a super chat that will guarantee that you make it on the show tonight. If you guys want to support me otherwise, click the link in the description or go to ofbnews.com to sign up for my Big 12 newsletter, Open for Business. We've got the anonymous player surveys going in that right now. If you want to know where Big 12 players say is the toughest place to play in the league and see them take some shots at Texas in the process, you can do that. Here's what Greg Sankey had to say about all this today. I guess not totally about all this. It's perhaps a little bit unrelated, but man, Sankey taking a shot at Florida State and maybe UCF. Matt Hayes says SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey on, let's see, where's this radio station? Let's make sure I get this one right. It's in Jacksonville, on a Jacksonville radio station, 1010 XL. Georgia was one of the best 4 teams in the nation and didn't get in the playoff, but you didn't see us jumping up and down and complaining and hanging national championship banners. So he says a not so subtle shot at FSU. But as Matt Baker points out here, FSU isn't the school in the state that has a national championship marking. That's UCF, right? Like, is that in some ways a shot from Greg Sankey across the bow at like UCF and the Big 12, I guess, by proxy? Which, like, you know, fine, whatever. To me, that's really punching down. Like, Greg Sankey, you feel the need to punch down at the Big 12 and UCF? Like, you feel the need to punch all the way down at the Big 12 and UCF? What are you doing with that, man? Why do you need to do that, Greg Sankey? If Florida State's the deal and it's kind of the topic du jour and you're sick of getting asked about them and you don't really want them in the conference and you feel like they've been a nuisance and a little bit annoying, like, all right, like, I guess fine. I don't know. That's a bit of a whiny comment to me from somebody who's just totally in a catbird seat, controls everything. It's kind of just being a bully unnecessarily. I mean, it's like it's a reason nobody likes you, Sankey, and it's because of stuff like that just felt a bit unnecessary. Felt a bit unnecessary to me out of him. But if you are going to interpret that as at least in part a shot at Florida State, I mean, that certainly just like bolsters the reporting that's been done by the Brett McMurphys of the world here lately. I mean, that just sort of backs up the entire sentiment there, right? Like they don't care enough to even try to be cordial. And it's not even like being cordial. Like that was just going way out of your way to take a shot. There was no reason to do that. You did not have to do that at all. That was going way, way out of your way to take a shot there. And I would also say it does. I mean, to me, it rings a little bit hollow because Sankey, come on, man. When the situation presented itself where there was a possibility that the SEC could get left out of the playoff last year, and Florida State fans in here, if there are any of you, I feel for you. You should have been in the playoff over Bama. You should have been in the playoff over Bama last year. It's ridiculous that we're not letting an unbeaten conference champ in there. Alabama, I will not listen to those arguments. Florida State was more deserving of being in there. But when it became apparent that was going to happen, I mean, Sankey and the SEC, we start getting they engage, and here's the thing, they just have a better promotions arm than Florida State does. So you want to say Florida State is whiny and all that. I guess maybe it comes across like that, but they don't have the entire media stratosphere of the sport by the balls like the SEC does. So the SEC goes whining to their army, and their army starts deploying. And, all of a sudden we're seeing Nick Saban doing interviews everywhere because they can just do that at the drop of a hat. Mike Norvell does not have that kind of cachet. So you reacted much the same way. Your league has spent the last decade and a half sucking up to the media and building this media empire that in some ways has been self-fulfilling. And that's not to say the SEC is not the best league out there. They are, but the degree to which they are has become kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, with how much they really control that. So again, rings a little bit hollow to me coming from Sankey there, and feels like unnecessarily punching down. Why do you need to do that? You got everything you want, Sankey. You've got everything you want and everything you need. Why do we need to be doing that? I don't really understand that. Don't really understand that one. Let's talk to Daniel. What's up, Daniel? Cat fan in Huskerland, a.k.a. Daniel Osborne. If this happens, think how big the Florida State-Colorado game will become. Coach Prime versus his alma mater. Well, I would love that. And that's where, Mike Gundy had the comment the other day at Big 12 Media Days when he was asked about Coach Prime. He was kind of like, look, our league needs this. We need eyeballs on the league. We need people paying attention. And like him or not, like how he does it or not, he finds a way to get eyeballs on the league. So it's a good thing. We need that. And I could not agree more. And if you all of a sudden have Prime in the league and Florida State's in there and you're playing those games, we are, of course, counting on Coach Prime being around for, at least a couple more years if this is going to happen. So there is that part of it. I'm not saying I really firmly believe one way or the other he would be there, but that's something to monitor at least, as whether or not he would be there. But yes, it would be amazing. And then also, a lot of the talk has always been, does Coach Prime wind up back at Florida State? I don't know what the scenario is here for Mike Norvell, because it seems like he's definitely got that thing humming. And I don't know if he's like an NFL guy at some point or whatever, but maybe he gets tired of NIL and the transfer portal and wants to go to the NFL. Could we get Coach Prime leaving Colorado to go intra-conference and be the head coach of Florida State, perhaps? Could get some content out of that. Having said that, I think the Big Ten and SEC are waiting for panic to set in so they can get FSU and Clemson on the cheap. Yeah, very well may be the ultimate outcome here. Absolutely could be. And this could be just kind of a more amplified version of the same saga we saw play out with Oregon and Washington. Definitely possible. That's very much a defendable opinion right now, Daniel. And you're making friends You're making friends with Florida State and Clemson by having that opinion. I guess maybe they wouldn't like the on the cheap part, but I would think Florida State and Clemson fans by now have to kind of just be like, look, we'll take what we can get. We'll take what we can get. We need to get into one of those two conferences. If it's going to be on the cheap, that's fine. We got to get in there. We got to get on our life raft. So, Daniel, appreciate it. Best to you and yours and your family. Great to see you here tonight. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Let's see. We've got David. What's going on, David? David says college football playoff would never leave out the SEC. ESPN owns the college football playoff media rights. Look, I know Florida State fans, I'm sure, could tell us all about every theory that they've got on that. And I tend to agree with you. It's, it's brands and their baby and their big cash cow. Like, it was going to be an uphill battle to ever make that happen. And it's probably going to be an uphill battle to ever make it happen that they're not going to have like 4 a year at the very least in this expanded playoff coming up. Media members have already been laying the groundwork. The talk shows have already been laying the groundwork for, what happens if Florida goes 9-3? Are we really going to let an 11-1 Big 12 team in ahead of them? Like, all that stuff is coming. Those discussions will happen. I'm sure we'll see some of those scenarios play out. Yeah. I'm not naive enough, David, to believe otherwise. So I do agree with you there. I do agree with you there. Starter 179. What's up, Starter 179? Are you enjoying the SEC spending 80% of their media day talking about if horns down is a penalty? Have fun, SEC teams. We tried to warn you. That was funny. There was a long explanation by who I assume was their head officiator, coordinator of officiating or head official, whoever it was that they send up there to speak, which is a pretty common media day thing. They'll send the head of officials up there to talk about stuff. And, for a long time in the Big 12, it was the horns down discussion. So that part was kind of nostalgic. Like, okay, well, look, now it's the SEC that gets to have the horns down discussion here. The SEC is not going to make horns down a penalty. I listened to the guy's explanation and he was like, what was the phrase he was using? It was like that it wasn't it was a hilarious phrase. Maybe I'll have to find the clip. I thought about bringing that up, but I didn't know that we were actually going to have time to get into it today. But yeah, the SEC is not going to make it a penalty, which, it shouldn't be. Like, come on, man. What are we doing? Did it make it in the football game? NCAA? Did it make it into NCAA? Somebody let me know if horns down made it into NCAA. Like, can you do that if you're a Sooner and you score a touchdown? Can you drop the horns down on them? Because I sure hope you can. I sure hope you can. Starter 179, I appreciate it. Oh, the last part of that, we tried to warn you. Yeah, Texas A&M fans, generally hilarious. I kind of live through the message board genius stuff that I see from TexAgs. But genuinely hilarious most of the time. But I feel them on the like, hey, we try to warn you. They're going to ruin the SEC. I'm loving some of that, and obviously it's very dramatic. But that is something I could actually like vibe with a little bit. Like, they may be right. We'll see. We'll see. The true disruptors, Florida State fans, which you should definitely, as TJ and I talked about, put that on a T-shirt. Disruptive partners with a Seminole logo. You are not the ultimate disruptive partner in college football. We know who that is. Here's a good comment. I'm going to pull this one up from John because I see it. John says Florida State is going to be radioactive if Florida's laws force TV contracts to be in the public. They'll make a lot of enemies permanently. Well, you bring me to another moment from today, John, and I appreciate that comment. It is a good one because everybody else, remember, all the other conferences actually rushed to the defense of ESPN in this case. So in the litigation going on between Florida State and the ACC, a big deal between Clemson too, a big deal in all this has been Clemson and Florida State trying to get, particularly Florida State using their sunshine laws, has been trying to get ESPN's agreement with the ACC, the media agreement, like just fully unredacted, opened up and out there. And ESPN has fought it tooth and nail saying like, there are trade secrets. We can't have that get out. It will be bad for business for us. You can't do that. Florida State has these sunshine laws that are not everywhere else where they had a much better chance of making that happen. And literally when ESPN started freaking out, all the other conferences came to the table and said, yeah, don't do this. So seemingly there are things on both sides that they don't really want out about how exactly these deals work. And so Florida State is like the one person standing on the other side being like, no, we want this. Well, they're going to get it. But as far as it being public, there will still be redacted parts to the public. So here was the latest from Matt Baker on that today. The ACC will share redacted versions of ESPN contracts and related documents with the state of Florida, ending Attorney General Ashley Moody's lawsuit against the league. The shared records will be made public, but the conference will be able to shield what it says are trade secrets. So the documents will be public, but part of it will be redacted. It's the trade secrets there. Baker says what exactly the contracts say will be key as litigation proceeds in Leon County. They'll shed light on who owns the TV rights to Florida State Clemson home games if the Seminoles or Tigers leave the league. That value is hundreds of millions of dollars. So it looks like they're not going to make total enemies there because they're going to be able to keep the part that they really want to be hidden, still hidden, it would appear. But that is a good comment, and that's an underrated thing that has been talked about in all of this is like when we talk about Florida State being a disruptive partner, that is definitely a way that they could make and have flirted with making a lot of enemies is by forcing that to actually come out. David, let's get to David. What's up, David? David says it would be great if the Big 12 added Florida State and Clemson, then add my Huskers and Texas A&M. I would be very happy. Hey, there's a thought, David. I love that. All right. So Texas A&M, speaking of the Aggies, they hate that Texas is back in their league, right? The Sips are back. We can't have the Sips back in the league. We got to do something drastic. And I've seen the A&M fans. I've seen Texags. I've seen you. I've seen you talking about we've got to get out to the Big Ten now. Forget Texas. We'll leave them behind. We need to do something drastic and turn this ship around and go straight to the Big Ten. Well, what if, Aggies? Hear me out. What if the Big 12 becomes a pseudo Power 3 conference? They add Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Louisville. Oh, boy, look at that all of a sudden now. All right, we've got some bigger brands there. Okay, we're the TV deal's up. We're getting some more money. We're a more respectable league here. This is familiar. We know this. We've been in the Big 12 before. We've played, hey, Texas Tech. Like that's a rival, right? We could bring some rivalries back. We're going back to our roots, baby. We're heading back to the Big 12. How is that, Texas A&M? There you go. You can get your escape hatch from Texas. You can still get paid a lot of money because the Big 12 will have private equity and conceivably at that point a better TV deal if you and Clemson and Florida State are coming. And let's bolster this whole thing up. Let's just do it like it's 1996, Texas A&M. David, that is my favorite comment that's been on the show in a long time because it sparked that for me. Texas A&M, here we come. Texas A&M to the Big 12. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Give it 3 years. I would take that long. 2 years, maybe like a year, 18 months. Give it 18 months. Give us 18 months to get Texas A&M back to the Big 12. Nebraska can come too. That'd be great. I don't know that they're going to really have the motivation for it and all of that. But, David, I would love it if your Huskers came back because I definitely missed that as far as the rivalry goes. So, anyway, David, appreciate you, my man. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I want to accentuate this, by the way, because I see it. Look at this. KU #1. Guy's got a Jalen Daniels picture. Huge fan of your show, John. Well, thank you, KU #1. I appreciate that. Much respect to the Kansas football program. I was about to say like much love. I guess I can't really say much love, but much respect certainly to the KU football program these days. I know we all, we do our shticks on Twitter and whatnot, but how can you not respect Kansas football and Lance Leipold at this point? So salute to you. We can get along. We can all get along here, people. You see this Texas A&M, we're all getting along. This is a great place where you can get along. Nobody's pushing anybody around. You don't have to worry about any of this Texas stuff. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. David, what's up, David? Checking in again. David says, I want to be in the room when Vandy, slaps Texas in an SEC meeting and Texas can't do anything about it. I don't, I would love it if Vandy did. I don't know if Vandy will have the cachet too, but there are about 5 different colored suits that are in that room. Georgia, LSU, Alabama, Does Oklahoma get to at that point? I don't know. How do we feel about Oklahoma? What are we doing with Florida? Maybe Florida, somebody of that caliber too. Ole Miss, it's like Ole Miss on the field. They have been around for a while. I don't know. We could debate how many people would actually really have the leg up on Texas as far as that goes. But it's happening somewhere. And we would all very much love to watch that, no doubt. No doubt. KU number 1, man. Thank you. I didn't even see that. I swear I did not even see that before I pulled up your comment a second ago. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that a lot. KU number 1. I hope you're signed up at ofbnews.com for the Open for Business newsletter if you want more Big 12 content for me on a regular basis. But appreciate you, my friend. Love to see that. Love to see it, everybody. We're all getting along here. This is great. I say that I have not really been able to monitor the chat enough tonight to know if you guys are all getting along, but I feel good. I feel very good by the end of this show tonight. It's been fun. It's a fun time to be a Big 12 fan, regardless of what the ultimate outcome is. That's my message to you on the way out the door tonight. Regardless of how this happens, regardless of what the ultimate end result is of all this, be happy. Think about where the Big 12 is at and how interesting a conference it is, and how much more relevant it is now than we all felt like it was going to be 3 years ago at this time. 3 years ago at this time, it felt horrible. And now here we are with a really interesting product, a lot of really big, passionate fan bases, and maybe some more, maybe some disruptors. Go out there and be disruptive partners in your life, only in a tongue-in-cheek sort of way. Oh, I thought of one other thing I was going to tell you guys. I need some advice here. And I think I saw Justin earlier. Did I see Justin? I know he's asked me about NCAA before recently. Where'd you go? Yeah. Okay. Justin was here at least as of 6 minutes ago, and he's usually beat the buzzer guy. So Justin, I hope that you are here. Okay. Because with NCAA, there's an important development here. Now, I do not have very much free time at all between trying to run a full-time job here, trying to run a newsletter, and then doing the YouTube thing. It is a lot. Justin's here. All right, Justin's here, baby. Justin's here. So I've got a full-time job. I've got the newsletter. I've got a YouTube channel. I've got a girlfriend. There are a lot of things competing for my time these days, but you guys know what else has happened here lately that I'm seeing everybody tweet about and post about and TikTok about, and I'm seeing all the content of people playing this damn video game. And it is killing me, man. I want to so bad. I'm like, that looks amazing. Back in the day, that was right about this time, my July ritual back in the day when the game was still coming out every year was I would go to the midnight release at my local GameStop. Like I pre-ordered it and I would get it at the midnight release every single time. And I want the game so bad, but I'm worried about what it's going to do to this. Like, I don't have free time already. Am I going to get too hooked on it? Will I not be able to do all these things as well as I want to? But I had an important update. I got offered, I need to buy a console. That was another part of this. And I talked to Justin about this the other day. I need to buy a console if I'm going to do it. Okay. So I was like, that was like my buffer before. I was like, if I'm going to have to spend like $500 to buy a PS, what are we on? Like 5? If I'm going to have to spend $500 to do that, it just doesn't seem worth it. But I got somebody in my Discord offered me a used Xbox, and you guys are going to have to help me with the terminology on this. It's a used Xbox, whatever the smallest one is. I know he was saying like it doesn't have enough space to do much more than play a couple of games, which is fine. I would only be using it for one game. I can promise you that. But he offered it to me like with a controller for like $200. So now I'm looking at it like, what's the game? Like $60-$70? Like I could do this for, $260 instead of what I was thinking, like, $600 or something. And now I'm like, God, this is killing me. That seems reasonable. Yes. Xbox Series X, Justin. So do I do it? That's my question to you, Justin. Do I do it and jeopardize being able to do all of the things that I want to do from a like business and career standpoint right now? And or Am I gonna lose the lady because of it? That's the question. That's the question. And Starter 179, you bring up a good point. You can make money on Twitch streaming. I can make money streaming. I can't. Oh, Xbox Series S is the small one. Whichever is the small one. That's the one. That's the debate here. But you're saying I can make money on Twitch, and I've seen people like I saw my guy TJ. I saw him streaming playing like Florida State games on the game, and we were talking about it the other day. He's like, well, I kind of justified it because I was like, hey, say I do X number of streams and I make $20-$30 a pop, I can pay for that thing pretty quick. And I was like, damn, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. So that's my question. That's my question. Do I do it? Do I do it? Do I buy it? I told the guy, give me the night to think about it, and I will give you an answer tomorrow. Justin wants a dynasty with all the people who cover the Big 12 on YouTube, College Football Mafia, 365 crew. That'd be fun. Although I would get worried that I'd get really worked because I'm going to be rusty. It's been so long since I played it. Justin says buy it, people. Justin says buy it. Ron says priorities. She'll understand. I mean, she is amazing. She is amazing. So Brett says, yes, the Series S would work. The only difference is if you wanted better resolution and frame rates. How big of a difference does that make? Brett or someone, can you tell me, like, how big of a difference does that make? Would it be something that would be like legitimately annoying? Would this be a big deal? Like something that I would be like, man, this sucks. I should have just spent the extra, whatever it is, $100, $200 to do it. He also said, like, he offered me for like an extra $100, like a terabyte of storage or something that goes with it. Would that make a difference and make it better? That's my other question here. It's my other question here. David says, EA, damn it. All right. EA kept horns down out of the game. That's soft, EA. That's soft. We needed that. We needed like a good old Gary Jennings, Will Greer, David Sills. I'm trying to remember who it was in that West Virginia game in 2017. That was dropping it. Justin's saying yes, buy it right now. You guys are pushing me into it, man. You guys are pushing me into it. No, Justin's saying, Justin's smart. He says, get the girlfriend something too. Yeah, I would probably have to. It is an investment. It is definitely an investment. Can you guys tell me, would the smaller one, the Series S, would the Series S be annoying to me? Like, would the resolution frame rate that you guys are talking about, like, would that make a significant deal? I'll ask my Discord about it too. They're definitely informed folks in there, but any advice you guys can give me would be fantastic. We got a couple buzzer beaters in here. Jen Fari. What's up, Jen Fari? FSU fan here. All right, we got an FSU fan in the house. John, do you think if Florida State and Clemson came into the Big 12 with a bunch of other ACC teams, the Big 12 would create an Eastern Division? Yes, I absolutely do. I would think that makes sense. The one bit of caution I will give you on that, I guess, is that Yormark and his crew have been so good at nailing like the big picture things that like really truly matter, like the things that are going to keep you afloat and surviving. They have not been great at like running a conference thing, like day to day and what happens with competition, a la the tiebreaker thing last year. And maybe to say that they have work to do there. And that makes sense because Brett Yormark's he's not a career college athletics guy. He's been an entertainment industry guy and worked in NASCAR, and he didn't come from that world, right? So it would make sense that's not their forte necessarily. So that'd be the only caution I would give you. Maybe that would be something that wouldn't be totally in the wheelhouse and they'd find a way to screw it up a little bit. But I would think that would definitely make some sense. I mean, at that point, you're talking about whatever, 4 to 6 teams that you have there. And then you'd have Cincinnati, you have UCF, you have West Virginia. So we're already at like 7 there. I mean, I guess the controversy would be who else is getting thrown into that group that would have to do a little bit more traveling, and maybe they do some sort of pod or 4 divisions. Like, they could figure something out. Tom, what's up, Tom? Appreciate you, by the way. Jen Fari, thank you. Tom, Big 12. We might be conference number 3, but alive at number 3 is far better than anyone thought we'd be 3 years ago. That is damn right, Tom. That's damn right. And you, if you want to live a happy life, man, you count the blessings. You have gratitude for what you got. I've definitely got gratitude for what the Big 12 has here, and I frankly think it's a pretty exciting time. It's a pretty exciting time to be a Big 12 fan. Tom, I love the attitude. That is a winning attitude, my friend. Winning mentality. Everybody, get on board with Tom, and thank you for being here and supporting the channel tonight, Tom. Live free or die. Buy the game, you jabroni. I love it. I love it. Okay, the series is pretty affordable as an entry console. There'll be Black Fridays if you decide on one down the line. The resolution frame rate for S is 30 FPS. Okay, this is awesome, Brett. You're way smarter than me. I'm too dumb to understand like exactly what the numbers mean and like so what it actually would look like on a screen. Brett, if you want 4K at 60 frames, you want a Series X. Series X also has more internal memory. So I don't 4K, I don't think really matters to me. I don't think a 4K TV right now. Okay, someone says depends on how big of a TV you're playing it on. I think I'm playing on like a 55-inch TV, something like that. Somewhere around there. I mean, it's big enough. But that is good. That's good info. All right, I'm gonna have to jump off, guys. I realize I'm just dragging on here, but thank you all for sticking around and answering my questions about the game and pushing me so gently to perhaps make this purchase and get the game. So I guess I'll have to figure out how to stream that. That'll be the next question I have for all you guys is, all right, I've got it. Now, how the hell do I stream it? Like, how do I do that? Do I have to do it through Twitch? Like, can I just do it through YouTube? We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together as one big community here. Appreciate all of you guys. Please make sure to go subscribe if you can. Sign up to my newsletter, Open for Business, ofbnews.com, or you can click the link in the description. It would mean a ton to me if you could do that. Great way to support me right now. Like the video on the way out the door. Let's see what else. Oh, spread the word. Social media. Spread the word about Open for Business. Spread the word about the YouTube channel, social media. I'm trying to, if you guys want to hit me up on Twitter at JL Kurtz, I'll just let you in on like everything right now. I was spending time today trying to find the big Facebook groups for fans of West Virginia, fans of Oklahoma State, fans. I'm already in the biggest K-State one. Shout out to the K-State family. But I'm trying to find those so I can post Open for Business content there to try and grow the subscriber base of that. So if you guys know of any of those or you're in them, hit me up on Twitter at JL Kurtz and let me know what they are. Because generally they've been very receptive and like, hey, when I have something that's related to your school, I'll come post it here. Would love to direct you guys to that. And it can be a nice symbiotic relationship. So if you have that, please let me know. Appreciate all of you guys. Oh, I see we've got one here. Rock Chalk family. I'll check it out. The problem here for that, KU number one, I may need you to vouch for me because I don't know how exactly Rock Chalk family would feel about me hopping in there, but we'll try. You know, Iowa State fans, that one might be a little tricky too, but I appreciate you. I'll look into it. KU number one. Thank you, my man. Okay. Anyway, you guys are awesome. I've been rambling for a while here. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday and have a tremendous rest of your week. I will talk to you soon.